was looking on The Athletic today. There's a piece about the EA Sports college football return.
Let's go.
And Bill Shea surmises that it takes about 16 months from the time the press release hits to the time where it actually gets in a gamer's hand.
Yep,
so
that sounds about right.
SmackDown, that timeline means you're going to be sitting on those large hands of yours until July 2022 at the earliest.
I am completely – hell, we've waited 6 or 7 years for this thing to come back anyway. But I will say, and I've heard a lot of my friends have said it, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will agree, the Madden franchises went down a little bit as far as the quality and different things like that. EA Sports, I know they're listening right now because they're in tune to halftime. Don't screw this up.
This is such an incredible return. You know, it's even bigger than the return of Rob Gronkowski to professional football.
Yes.
Aaron Torres joining us here from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, Kentucky Sports Radio, and Fox Sports Radio. Earlier this week, AT, the big news about the EA Sports franchise college football game coming back. Now, we don't know when it's going to happen. We heard from Hunter Yurachek the other day that college athletics overall, administrators and coaches, I think, were really taken aback by the timing of the incident. They were taken by surprise because, we're all waiting for this name, image, and likeness legislation from the NCAA. I wonder, do you care about this video game? Is this as much of a cultural touchstone for you as it seems to be for a lot of our listeners?
Okay, so it's one of those things where, as somebody who covers college sports, I have to, pretend like I really, really, really care. I haven't played video games since college. Now, I will say this was my favorite video game when I was in college, but I was in college so long ago, I don't even know what I played this on. If it was, I don't even know, the original Xbox, the Sega Genesis. I don't remember what I played it on. But, listen. I had fun building UConn into a national power. It was a point in my life that it was special, and then I moved on to Army, and we won a few national championships there. So, I have nothing but fond memories of the game. But I'd also be lying if I said at 30 whatever years old with a wife, I can't be sitting there, hey, honey, we'll go file our taxes later. I got to finish up, I got a big showdown, Arkansas, Tennessee this weekend. But, give me 20 minutes, babe. I'll be right there. That's not going to fly as a 35-year-old. So,
did I hear you say the words UConn national power involved in something involving college football there? Because if you want to talk fantasy and sports, that seems to make some sense.
You know what's actually really funny, Phil? UConn was pretty good when I was there. They went to, I think, 4 bowl games in 4 years. Right after I left, they went to the Fiesta Bowl,
right?
So, yeah, they got smoked by Bob Stoops in Oklahoma, big game Bob, but they were there, Big East champs. And it's really kind of funny is in a lot of ways it's sad. And for people who don't know much about UConn athletics, I mean, they've been reading up a little bit lately, listening to Phil's call of the Hogs upset the other day. But, UConn, they basically got kicked out of the Big East. The Big East became a football-only school, or a basketball-only league, about 2013, 2014. They get kicked out of the Big East. Everybody else finds a home. Rutgers to the Big Ten, Pitt to the ACC, Syracuse to the ACC, and UConn got kind of left out to dry. Maybe some politics involved. We can discuss it a later time if you want, but there was some shady backroom stuff going on. UConn gets left out to dry. They end up in the AAC, and the rest is history. And so now they're an independent. They really stink. I didn't think they should have rehired Randy Edsall in the first place, but they did. Now they're awful, and that's all there is to it. But they weren't bad when listen, I'll say this. Dan Orlovsky was there when I was there. Darius Butler, who played in the NFL for about 8-9 years, is a good friend of mine. Tyvon Branch, who played for about 8-9 years, is a good friend of mine. Anthony Sherman, I believe, still plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. He'll be in the Super Bowl this weekend. So UConn was pretty good when I was there, man.
Yeah, I remember that too. I do. All right, so let's get into basketball here. Since we last spoke to you, Arkansas went 1-1, a really entertaining loss against Oklahoma State. Cade Cunningham, I think, showed why a lot of people think he might be the top overall pick. And then a really impressive defensive performance by Muss's club against Mississippi State earlier this week. And now they're off tomorrow because of Texas A&M's COVID issues. And AT, because they get Kentucky on Tuesday and Kentucky's visiting Tennessee, I don't think this could work out any better for Arkansas right now.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're at the point where we know what the narrative is. You got to beat some teams that you're supposed to, that you're not supposed to, or that whatever. So I'm really impressed with this team. I watched the whole Oklahoma State game. Easily could have won. Maybe in many ways should have won. And then to bounce back with the Mississippi State win, convincing. I was watching them when they were down, 14-2. I don't even remember what the score was. But I get the Arkansas fan that's kind of sitting there kind of saying, okay, we need to see it against a real team now. And so to your point, Phil, Kentucky's a game you're supposed to win. I know it's on the road, but Rupp is going to be at 25, 20, 15% capacity, whatever it is. They're not playing well right now. They're probably going to be coming off another loss. But they have shown at times if you don't show up ready to play, they'll beat you. They beat Florida, who's trending like a tournament team. They beat LSU at home convincingly as well. So the road is in front for Arkansas, and we've talked a lot about it. I think we talked about it last week, is that you look at the back half of the schedule, there's going to be opportunities to pick up marquee wins, and most of those opportunities are going to be at Bud Walton Arena, LSU, Florida, Alabama. But you got to take care of business. Obviously, having a week off. I'll say this too, and I'm just rambling now, but I've been talking to a lot of people across college basketball, and as weird as it sounds, you would think that the teams that have had a bunch of starts and stops have been at a disadvantage. But I think the teams that have actually been going all along are a little worn down right now. It's an exhausting grind of a season. And so to just get a Saturday off, I don't think is necessarily the worst thing for this team. Now, obviously, you would have loved to pick up another win against a bad Texas A&M team, but I don't know that it's the worst thing to have a couple of days off and then kind of regroup on Sunday, Monday, get ready for Kentucky.
Completely agree. It's a blessing in disguise, I think. Aaron Torres from Fox Sports joining us here on Halftime. Let's stay with Kentucky for a second. A couple days ago, we were talking with Bill King from Nashville Sports Radio, and he was talking about Josh Heupel and how the hiring and everything has went down with volunteer Twitter regarding Josh Heupel. Let's flip it into Kentucky, because we know you cover a lot of Kentucky basketball. How is Kentucky basketball Twitter doing right now? How's the Twitterverse handling what's happening with the Wildcats right now?
It's actually really funny that you frame the question that way, Matt, because I was on in Knoxville a day or two after Josh Heupel got hired, and I asked the host, I said, what is the reaction with you guys? And they said, believe it or not, it's actually more, people are more excited than Twitter would lead you to believe. And the loudest, angriest people seem to have a voice on social media, and it's unfortunate, but it's just the reality that we live in. And so when I heard that, I think it kind of struck me because, frankly, I'm seeing the same thing with Kentucky, Matt, is that I think, when I look at Kentucky, I think everyone can say John Calipari is not earning his paycheck this year. You don't get paid $8 million even to have one down year every couple years. But I think on the flip side, there are some people legitimately in the fan base that are like, he has to go, he's lost his touch, he needs to be fired. Like, literally people are saying he needs to be fired. First of all, he has a lifetime contract, so I don't know what the buyout is on a lifetime contract, but I guarantee it ain't cheap. But yeah, there's a vocal group that really believes that he has lost his touch, and I think two things can be true, Matt. What I really believe is I can understand a fan that says this is unacceptable, we should never be this bad, but I also think there's an understanding of this is a very weird year. And when you do the things that Kentucky does, which is flip over the roster every year, always relying on freshmen, in this particular season where we have no exhibitions, no really out-of-conference games, they've played since the third game of the season, they've played power conference teams only. So since December 1st, they've only played power conference teams. I think two things can be true. You can be frustrated, but this idea that he's completely lost his touch, the guy won the SEC last year, the idea that he's lost his touch is just idiotic, and, I hope nobody takes that portion of the fan base very seriously.
And being the sport, but obviously we're in the same profession, but those crazy fans is what makes our job fun, because when everybody's winning, when Kentucky's winning, when Arkansas's winning, all those haters and all the negativity is really quiet. But the minute you start losing and the minute they smell blood in the water, they come out from every which direction.
Well, no, 100%. And we just live in such a reactionary society where, it's funny, right? So I was hosting Fox Sports Radio basically as the Matthew Stafford trade broke with Jared Goff. And what I realized was quarterbacks are now essentially like college football coaches, which is, Bill Belichick has said this, you're one bad year away from being on the hot seat. And I believe that to essentially be true. It just speaks to the fact that we are such a reactionary society, that context doesn't matter, that yelling and screaming is rewarded. And listen, this is a bigger conversation about where we are, like, as a society as a whole. But to bring it to sports, I agree with you. Listen, you can look at something like even, say, the Chad Morris era and say, okay, everything is trending in the wrong direction. This is not the guy. And you have a however many game sample size where you're getting worse every week, not better. But for a guy like Calipari, who has been inducted into the Hall of Fame, they're not taking that plaque away from him, and literally won the SEC last year. I think everybody agrees if there had been an NCAA tournament, they would have been one of the favorites. It's just crazy. It's just crazy for me to see. But again, it's the world that we live in. And like you said, Matt, it's what fuels what we do. It's what fuels the call lines, what fuels podcast downloads, listens, streams, whatever. But it's amazing to see. And I hope, like I said, I hope in the case of Kentucky, I think there's always exceptions. There's always times where the fan base is right. But I hope in the case of Kentucky that nobody in that administration is taking very seriously the demands of these kind of lunatic fans.
Last thing before we let you go here, AT, what do you got on the Super Bowl on Sunday? I think a lot of us have a lot of difficulty picking against Patrick Mahomes, which also just makes you realize that means you're picking against Tom Brady. So this is a tough one to pick.
No, I was the idiot that picked against Tom Brady in the NFC Championship game, and I don't want to do it again. But two things kind of stand out to me about kind of this matchup. Is that one, first of all, Brady was awesome, but, Brady threw 3 interceptions in that, NFC Championship game. And, Aaron Rodgers made a lot of mistakes, too. It was so easy to blame Matt LaFleur after the game, but Aaron Rodgers did a lot of dumb stuff, too. First half, they're driving and, could score a touchdown, have to settle for field goal, stuff like that. So that's one. And two, the way the Chiefs can just turn it on. I mean, they were playing a Bills team that was arguably the hottest team in the NFL over the last half of the season. They fall down 9-0 and just basically throw up 38 straight points, essentially. I think they outscored Buffalo 38-6 over 2.5 quarters from there. It's just incredible. And so you led by asking, can you bet against Patrick Mahomes still? And maybe I'll look stupid for betting against Tom Brady for a second straight game, but I am rolling with the Chiefs because it just strikes me as they play better when they're behind. They play better when they're down. They're not scared of the moment. And I think if Tom Brady, plays like he did in the NFC Championship game, there were a couple turnovers, and I think it could cost them. And I think the Chiefs will take advantage of it.
Well, I think you're right about that too. So I'm going to go against Tom Brady as well. So you're not stupid. It's okay. It's okay. AT, appreciate your time, man. As
Thanks,
always,
AT.
Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll talk about it next week.
All right, fellas. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
You got it. Aaron Torres from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Most recently had Matt Doherty, the former North Carolina Tar Heel coach, on with him. So always a great show when AT is hosting it. Hey, largemouth bass are spawning soon at ponds and lakes all over Arkansas and Oklahoma. And if you want to catch them, one of the best lures is the famous Yum Dinger. And they're made by the truckloads in Fort Smith by Pradco in 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, and 6-inch sizes. And, in fact, wacky rigging the 5-inch model can't be beat for spawning bass. These are in tackle boxes of bass anglers all over the United States and all over the world. It's the Yum Dinger, available at Walmart, Bass Pro Shops, Academy, LureNet.com, and tackle stores all over the place. All right, wrap up the first hour. Duma of the Week is coming up. Stay with us on Halftime.